Hello, this is Anthony. Let's walk and talk. You know, these journeys have shown me a lot of different experiences, and they've offered me a lot of different expressions of the world, of self, of society, of people. And as I continue to experience this life and understand better what exactly I'm being shown, what exactly is being projected, I begin to see things in a different way. Things that when I see them, no longer do I have questions. When I see them, no longer does the typical narrative apply. This video is likely going to piss off a lot of people, but I think it's important to understand some things. You see, when you begin to, this path isn't about ego. This path is truly about understanding self and truly trusting Creator, trusting the universe, overcoming the expectations of ego, and being able to embody a sense of understanding of who I am, who you are, what divinity is, and all of the things. You see, the reason I don't subscribe to a particular religious doctrine or dogma is because people go to these aspects of religion in order to try to connect. But the problem, and this is a very, very, very important thing to understand, and the problem is it's a double-edged sword. Religion speaks out of both sides of the mouth, and the problem with speaking from both sides of the mouth is no different than choosing to listen to soul or spirit and choosing to listen to ego. You see, the ego shouts. We said this, we talked about this. The ego's loud. The message from ego is very clear, but the whispers from the soul, the whispers from God, from Creator, from all that there is, they're just whispers. You see, this is why, people ask, show me, if you are God, show me a miracle. But see, that's not the path. The path isn't, that's ego. When you have the forthwith to challenge God, and in essence, that's what happens all the time, and especially with a religion. When you challenge God and you say, prove to me that you are who you are, then what occurs is you're essentially it's like an ant looking at a boot and asking the boot to prove that it's a boot. You see, it makes little to no sense. It doesn't resonate at all. You see, things that make perfect sense on this journey, they don't really require faith. You see, there are aspects biblically that make sense, and they are perfectly acceptable, like ask and you shall receive. But you see, what most people don't understand about ask and you shall receive is ask questions and you shall receive the answer. You see, you're told in religion that you have to have faith, you have to trust. But then what happens is people clamor to one book, and then that book, they try to make that book their identity. But as we've talked about before, ego requires identity. You see, spirit is formless, doesn't require a form. There is no identification for the soul, for Creator, because it is all, because you are all. And by trying to put a label on things, you're actually limiting the ability of Creator to into your experience. Now, this isn't meant to be a religious rant, but you see things that start to become more and more painstakingly obvious on this journey, especially as I begin to interact with people of all faiths, is that the book is meant to be a guide, but the book isn't the answer. And people say, oh, that's not true, Anthony, you just don't understand. The book is the answer. And to you, I ask this question. Take your ego out of it. Take fear that God might be angered by what you might think on these next statements. Take that out of it and think of it from a critical thinking perspective. You see, this is something that we've lacked on this journey. And we've lacked it on this journey because people have forgotten that the loud voice that yells in your ear, the Bible would say that is Satan. I don't disagree. That's the other side of the spectrum. There are two sides of the spectrum. Remember, we live in duality. So you have spirit, you have Creator, you have ego, you have the devil. But the devil spelled backwards is lived. So you have life. But people don't want to consider any of the things I'm about to say, but it's important to understand that. So here it is. If the book's perfect, and the book has all the answers, and the book was written by the one that created all of the universe, then that information would be perfect. Perfect. There would be no interpretation around it. The information would be perfect. However, it becomes very obvious as things have changed and times have changed and people have evolved and grown and societies have changed, that the book isn't perfect and the book doesn't have all the answers. And as times have changed, there are aspects of the book that have become, in essence, outdated. Now you're going to say, well, that's not possible. The book isn't outdated. It was written by the creator of the universe. But what's important to understand is this. It's important to understand that the fact that this book was written by the one that is claimed to be all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-seeing would have seen this time. He would have seen the changes. He would have seen how life was going to change, and the things that were required for the book to still be the book would have already been written in the book before we got to this time. There would not be any need for interpretation. And you see, that's what a lot of the books are. They're man who has decided what information should go in the book so that it requires interpretation. Walking this path doesn't require interpretation. It requires unconditional love. It requires trust. It requires understanding. It requires connection. It requires acceptance. Not for you, but for all. Acceptance, not for how you desire it, not for what you want, but what acceptance of what is. The books would tell you that too. You see, I as we live in this age of control and propaganda and manipulation, when you walk the path, what you begin to understand is this control and this manipulation and this desire to confuse isn't a new thing. Corruption isn't a new thing. Control isn't a new thing. Greed isn't a new thing. Manipulation is not a new thing. It's been around since the beginning of man. And if that's the case, then why are we to believe that the people who chose to decide what went into certain books and destroyed all of the other books. Why are we to trust that that was a simpler and more pure time of connection with Creator and now isn't? You see, it makes no logical sense. And the problem is when you don't understand that this journey is about the integration of emotion and logic, then you understand why it's time now for things to begin to evolve. Then you understand why one book doesn't have the answer. The answers don't come in a book. The answers come from your connection. So, what say you? You see, I'm not here to argue with you. I'm just here to present things that I've been shown. I don't have all the answers. I gain answers as I walk, as I'm shown. As always, if you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm truly grateful. And until I talk to you again, peace, love, light. I hope you have the most amazing day.